Today we're going to talk about the Gallupville Gallup store and explain a little bit about where it is and how it came to be. Chester, thank you for helping us with this series of films.
Glad to.
Chester, we're going to focus in on this map and help people understand where we are. This is an 1866 map, and this is the Fox Creek. And then this, it says Tannery here, but this is where the town transfer station is. This is the main street up through town, and here's where the corner store is today, and right across on the other side is the Gallupville house. So, but the place we're going to be talking about, let me take this one, is the red dot is, and that's up the street, and I think most of us knew it as one time as a church. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Here's a late picture of it. Here's a building still standing today. We're halfway up the hill on the north side. This is a 1979 picture, just after the Gallupville Gospel Church repaired it and started having services there. This is 10 years later, just before the church sold it. They had built a nice new church just west of the village. Now we back up. This is a 1965 picture when it was the Orion Lodge Hall. We will now use this building for orientation and history.
Wait a minute, let's move here. The Orion Lodge Hall. What was the Orion Lodge?
Well, that was the old Oddfellow organization,
Okay.
IOOF. In the initials, it was an organization of men here. Had started their organization way back around 1900.
Okay.
And had, of course, there was another history connected with that. They had one time owned the Gallupville house, and then they the organization got weaker, and the Grange was strong, and sometime around, I don't remember the date, they traded halls. The Grange had the Gallupville house, and the Oddfellows finished up their organization as long as they could last in this building here.
But you don't think the Orion Lodge built the building?
No.
Why don't you tell us more about that then?
Okay, that can be done right here now. It was July 4th, 1815, 182 years ago, when Ezra Gallup, a millwright, purchased 16 acres of land for $160. That's $10 an acre. This amount tells us no buildings. It was the west end of the old Jacob Zimmer farm. Incidentally, I'm the 7th generation back of this Jacob Zimmer. His old home was at the foot of the hill on the Knox Road, or Upper Gallupville of today. The west line of the 16-acre crossed the village north 30 degrees east by compass reading, just above the Gallupville house of today. Gallup must have had some money back of him, because in the Fox Creek he built a dam, run water into a mill pond, built a sawmill and grist mill. Only 10 years later he sold the grist mill with water rights and 3 acres of land for $4,000. He had built this country store on this site where this building is we're looking at, and we're in 1825. Ezra Gallup was appointed postmaster. An area known as Fox Creek had a new name, Gallupville, named after this man. Ezra Gallup sold 4.5 acres of land to Paul Settle in 1826 for $550. Now it was the Paul Settle store, and remained a country store with different owners until 1906. A man by the name of Sanford Merzelis was a store owner for years and advertised for sale in 1877. Please listen to this advertisement. The store, blacksmith shop, barn, sheds, hay scales, and double dwelling house and 2 acres of land. This dwelling house stood just east of the store. We'll see pictures of this later on. In 1906, the Grange organization bought the old store and rebuilt it for their meeting rooms. They sold the Orion Lodge in 1947. Now some more early history. About 1840, Gallup sold the land between here and the Gallupville house for building lots. Here's the old blacksmith shop staying just below the old store. You can see the corner of the old store right here.
Mm-hmm. Which is this, Chester? Okay.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Here's the old here's the same shop a few years later, probably just after 1900. Here we can see the old store, or the old building we're just looking at right here. This stood just below it. And I remember this building. It was torn down. It did not burn in the 1930s.
Do we know who the blacksmith was here?
That was the name of the name. They called him Colonel Nashels. He went by the name of Colonel. I don't know whether he was in the service, but I remember hearing that name so many times when I was a boy and growing up. And later people calling him Colonel Nashels.
He's a big man.
That's right. That's all I know. I can't remember him, but I remember the building being closed. And that's one of the things that's always bothered me in my history research, and nobody could tell me anything about when it was torn down. I remember being torn down, but I don't know when. It's probably around 1930. Here's an interesting advertisement. We're going to look at some old advertisements now. Ashes wanted. What does it say there, Bob? You can read it.
Yeah, it says Schoharie Patriot at the top, November the 17th, 1843. Ashes wanted. The subscriber will pay the highest price for good house ashes at their store at Gallupville. Dominic and Weedman, November 17th, 1843. And what they were doing was they were making potash.
I've checked that up, and the store's advertising for ashes along that same time in Schoharie in the same newspaper. So there must have been a commodity that they used this ashes for to make money on somewheres. And if you want to read that article,
sure. Potash was originally obtained by leaching or running water slowly through ashes of burnt wood and boiled down to the solution in a large open kettle. The residue, a white solid, was called potash because it was from ashes and the pot. That makes sense. On some rural communities, wood ash are still leached. Potash obtained is used in the preparation and the making of crude soap. Potash is a commercial name for certain compounds of the elements of potassium carbonate used in the manufacture of glass, commercial fertilizers, and etc. Chester, I remember making potash.
Oh, yes.
By taking the wood ashes and you just pour, and it's really turns out to be lye. It's quite.
That's what it is.
It's a quite strong chemical that comes out. I know that if you get it on you, it'll burn you.
Yes, and I remember when I grew up, I was born in 1910, and around probably 1918, 1920, I remember my father doing that very same thing and putting the lye that came from the ashes into the potash kettle, starting a fire and cooking it down and making what they call soft soap. That was used for cleaning the floors, not for dishwashing.
Wasn't the other ingredient the lard renderings?
Yes, there was from the butchering. Yes, lard fat went into it. I don't remember.
And goose grease sometimes.
Probably in other areas.
Yeah, you could take goose grease and potash and make soap.
Yep.
All right, fine.
Okay, we'll go on with some more pictures here. This one is particularly interesting to me. This advertisement tells me a story. It says new store, new goods, new prices, new system, 1859. This is my clue when the present building was built. is not known if there was a fire or not. But I'm sure that's the building there today because I have examined it when the church bought it, and the construction is not going back to 1815 or 1825. It's much newer. So I believe they must have either tore it down or rebuilt it, but there's no record of any fire. But this advertisement, new stores, new goods, new prices, is a giveaway to me.
Let me just read a little bit more here. Would respectfully announce that the citizens of Gallupville and the surrounding country that they have purchased the store formerly occupied by W&R Chamberlain and have just returned from New York with a large and carefully selected assortment that cannot be excelled in Schoharie County. We have the choice of stock of fancy and staple dry goods, ladies' dress goods, shawls, cloaks, fur, millinery goods, lions' velvet, cloths, cashmeres, clothing, gents' furnished goods, hats, caps, boots, and shoes, crockery, Yankee notions, and etc., all of which will be sold at the city prices for cash or barter. No charge for showing the goods. All kinds of country products taken in exchange for goods. Gallupville, November the 23rd, 1859. Dominic N. Rosenfield. Great ad.
Those names are all familiar in old history, especially the Dominic name. And this one here is quite familiar to me in one respect. Here's one of Sanford Merzilis' advertisement. His daughter married my grandfather Zimmer's brother, who was Uncle Austin. And I remember my Aunt Emma, who was Emma Merzilis, before married. I remember her well. I remember about 1930 being in her home, our neighbor, and she showed me a picture of this very store looking down street, and the picture, of course, when she was gone, the picture was destroyed and I never got it. I wished I had it today.
Chester, let me just catch a couple of these. This is 1866, new goods, new styles, and new prices at Gallupville, Schoharie County. Dress goods, cloths, cashmeres, dress trimmings, Yankee notions. Also, great variety of domestic dry goods, a fine stock of boots, shoes, and gaiters.
Yeah. Just above the store, on a 2-acre parcel that Merzilis was selling in 1877, was a 2-family house. It was long, with both families on ground level. I remember it well. It burned January 9th, 1963. It was old, and I have no good pictures. It had a brick fireplace and a brick oven on the side. And here's some late pictures I just have here of this old house. Here it is, right after the fire. And this is looking down the street from looking west, and here's the driveway in, and here was the back, here was the out of the old big fireplace, and here is a picture of the fireplace after the fire, after being torn down. Here's a brick oven, so it had to be old. And today it's the home of Emmett Jeffrey, Mr. and Mrs. Emmett Jeffrey. He bought the property back in 1963 and tore this down and built a new home there and still lives there. Another picture from that same area we got to put in here and show. This is a 1985 picture and explains some early history. Right after 1815, Ezra Gallup's first building project was a dam across Fox Creek, a mill pond, grist mill, and sawmill. Those were all right back of these homes of today as we go up the hill and see them standing there today. And the middle, this house is in the middle here, it sets back, as you'll notice, and will notice if you drive past. And right here was a sawmill lane that went down to the sawmill. That's the reason this house was setting back. There's a road went right down through here, right down into the back. It's called Sawmill Lane.
Let's get it straight. This is the road leading out of the village towards
This West Burn, and this is directly
Yeah.
across the road from the old store.
Okay, so this the store is on this side of the road, and these houses are on the other.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's all we have for this series.
And then you're saying that there is a road that went through here that's no longer there.
No longer there, no. But
And it went down to the,
it's on the map, and you can see where it had been.
but it went down to the mill and the sawmill.
Down to the mill and
Okay.
sawmill in the back.
Chester, I'd like to thank you for doing another program with us on the Gallup store in Gallupville. This is just one more in the series of ones that we want to do together. I'm Bob Smith, a resident of the town of Wright, and I've been doing interviews with Chester Zimmer, who is a name and a family that's been in our town right from the beginning. So, Chester, thank you again for spending time and sharing us some of the information you've collected over the years. Thank you.